where I can put my clothes, uh, and um, and then the room is big enough if I remove everything to have a nice, comfortable bed, not just for me, for Shamim as well. If and when the time comes when we cannot climb up the stairs.
When your knees are not cooperating anymore.
That's right. Yeah, I hope that never come. Hope it never comes to that, but you never know. You're going to be prepared for it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good. Well, mom had knee surgery, so maybe you guys can get some knee surgery.
Well, not yet. Not yet. These are so far so good.
Good. Good to hear.
So,
Good to hear.
have you already started this podcast, or?
Maybe, I don't know. We'll see when it comes time to edit.
Oh, you edit it afterwards, do you?
Yeah.
All right then.
Yeah. So I will edit it. I'm excited to do this. Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. Amin tells me that we get paid fees for this, so I'm really excited as well.
Yeah. So I've sent him the fees for all of you.
Thank
so
you.
He'll be distributing it.
All right. I normally charge 150 pounds an hour, so just bear that in mind.
Oh, that's so much less than Aminata. So that's
Really?
perfect. So
wow.
that's perfect. That's within my budget. so no problem there. Okay, so let's start with you introducing yourself, your name, where you were born, and when you were born.
Okay, my name is Taju Charania, and I was born in a small town called Ambale in Uganda, in East Africa, where I was better known as Taju Jafar Kasam. And I was born on the 7th of June, 1943.
Thank you so much, Taju, for joining me today. That sounded so formal. No, honestly, thank you for doing this. I told Aminata that my plan now is to interview all of you and to create a new website to put all of these interviews up there so that your children, your great-grandchildren, and their children will be able to, if they're interested, to learn about the family.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, so it'll be really interesting. Tell me about growing up in is it Bali or Mobale? How do you pronounce it properly?
You know, when we were in Uganda, we used to pronounce differently, and after coming to England, like for example, my surname in Mabale would have been Charania, but after coming to England, so that people can spell it better, it became Charania instead of Charania. And similarly for Mabale, I think the English pronunciation is probably Mbale, M and B together. Similarly, after coming here, instead of Taju, I became Taj to the English people. So it was Taju Charania instead of Taju Charania. So yeah, it's Mabale. Sorry, what do you want to know about my growing up there?
Yeah, tell me about the town. What kind of a place was it?
I think it was a beautiful town with a mountain in the background called Mount Kokojeru, which had a waterfall coming down, which you could see with your naked eyes from the town, although it was a few miles away. And as kids, we used to walk and go up the mountain and up to the fall. But recently, having visited Uganda, the waterfall is almost not visible because I think they've diverted the water for irrigation. Um, so unfortunately, the waterfall appears to have almost sort of disappeared unless you go close by. So it was a beautiful town. Um, to give you an idea of how small or how large it was, I would say if I tell you that there was Ismaili population of about 800, from if my recollection is correct, and we had our own Jamaat Khana there, but it was the best. So this Mbale was the third largest town in Uganda. Uganda being at the time one of the three countries in East Africa, which is Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. Before it became Tanzania, it was Tanganyika and Zanzibar was separate. And then after the Sultan of Zanzibar was overthrown, and then when Tanzania became independent, Tanganyika became independent, then Tanganyika and Zanzibar became one as Tanzania. So, Uganda is the smallest of the three countries, but the most fertile of the three countries, with the best tropical weather you can imagine, because even the equator passes through Uganda. And so Uganda, for schooling, it was the best school in East Africa. So we were very fortunate in that respect. When you consider that Mbale was the third largest town in Uganda, the largest being Kampala, followed by Jinja, and then Mbale. And a lot of boys, especially our Ismaili boys, even from other communities, would come from the neighboring villages to come and stay in Mbale for studies. Just to tell you how good the education was, and the system of education was what, like in England, what they would call grammar school education, where they would encourage you in what you're good at. The school I went to, unfortunately, the setup at the time, the colonial times, was such that the Europeans had their own schools and they lived in the outskirts of the town with large gardens and huge houses. And we used to call them European towns. And then all the Asians would live in the town, with the houses also in the town. And the poor Africans would be living in the jungles, in their huts and small houses. So Asians had their own schools. And I don't know, for some reason, we just accepted that as a way of life. Everyone seemed to, without even thinking about how fair or unfair it was. And so I remember it wasn't until I was doing my, what we call in England, A-levels, which are the last 2 years of schooling before you go to university, that I started having Africans in our schools. Some of the guys used to walk for 5 miles from the villages, from the woods, to come to school and walk back 5 miles and have to walk under the paraffin light for studies and so on. That's when I think the realization sunk in that something was not right. The schools were mostly, the school I went to, they were all Asian teachers and a couple of English teachers for English and domestic science. I seem to remember the lady teacher for domestic science and an English teacher for English. Other than all the teachers were from India, a lot of Bengali, extremely clever teachers, including our headmaster. So yeah, the system of education was brilliant. You may already have been told during your other podcast with my brothers, but I'm repeating, I'm sorry, but because these things to me are quite significant. As we were growing up, first of all, we never had any electricity. We didn't have any drainage system for effluent, and we didn't have a telephone. So I remember those distinctly. And so for toilet is like all in a raised floor, which collected everything in a bucket, which was collected at night by some African guy with a bullock cart and with a flap in the back wall of the building, where he would just lift the flap, pick the bucket and empty it in a barrel, which was being dragged by some bullocks. So that happened in the evening at night, so nobody was any wiser. So you can imagine all the houses were like that, with a sort of a rod, not necessarily made of rod, between the backs of the houses, so the guy can come and collect that.
Taju, was this just in town? Like, would the Europeans have running water and electricity, or was this in the 40s where there was none of this?
No, I think Europeans had everything. It's that we didn't have, but we had this privilege of what I just described, which even the Africans wouldn't have. And one thing I cannot remember is where the water came from. But I do remember that eventually we had water supply. Yeah. Maybe the water supply was always there before the proper toilet systems came, or the drainage system. But the electricity, I remember we didn't have any. Used to have paraffin lanterns for electricity. Eventually, of course, we did have electricity. I can't remember how old I was before we had electricity, but I would imagine I guess, I think maybe 10, 11, something like that. And then eventually when we did have the telephone system, of course, everybody had a telephone in the shop. And so there was just one operator in the town. And if you wanted to make a phone call to anybody, you just had to wind this box, which had a receiver and a box with the handle that you wound. And when you did that, the operator would answer, and then you say, I want to call Nairobi, this number, blah, blah, blah. And he would make a note of it, and then he would say he will call you back. So there was only one phone call that was being used by the town. So when your turn came, then the operator would call you and connect you to the number you wanted in Nairobi. And that's how the telephone system started. Before that, obviously, we used to send out what used to be, I think, telegrams, telegrams, which, we would send to my uncle in Nairobi to say, leaving Toronto by train, stop, arriving Nairobi, 10 a.m., stop, Friday, stop, so telegram would go from the post office. And as I said in one of my emails to you, and nobody knew anybody's address by house number or street number. Your address was your PO box number. And the PO box was at the post office. So you rented this box for which you had a key. And every day you went and collected your letters and things. And that was your address. So seriously, anybody asked, what is your address? In those days, there would be PO box this, PO box this. Not just for Mbale, for Jinja, Kampala, Nairobi, Mombasa, Tanzania, everyone had a PO box. And the PO box system, I think, still exists for the mail. So the mail doesn't get delivered at home. So this is my recollection as a youngster. Fantastic education system. I was very fortunate to be in that system. And when I was like 6 years before my final year at school, I had to decide whether I wanted to go for science or art subjects. And we were also helped by teachers to say if you're good, And so I had chosen science, and our school was so advanced for those days that if I tell you that for my O levels, which is the exam we give, this was the English system examination, by the way, and all our examinations were set by Cambridge University, for schools, and we had to give O levels, which was like 2 years before university, and then we had to go another exam called A levels, which was the last year of school, so the 12th grade, which was set by Cambridge University, and our school was so advanced that we were being offered not just to do maths, but even to do additional maths as a subject. So I was doing maths, additional maths, physics, chemistry, biology. They were all separate subjects, not just general science, as one subject and things like that. So it was an amazing, amazing system. And I was very fortunate. And I would say that without blowing my own trumpet, that I was above average student. And last year of my schooling, I was also the head prefect of the school. We had a lot of curriculum activities. So I was a very, very keen scout. And me and 4 of my other friends, we went scouting together. We used to go camping together, and we used to pass all the examination that go with scouting together. And eventually all 5 of us received the Queen Scout Award, which is a certificate after passing so many exams that is actually given and signed by the Queen, Queen Elizabeth II. And so we have that. And in fact, all 5 of us even have got a picture with our Scouts uniform, which came in the Uganda Argus, which was the local newspaper. And I still have the picture of all 5 of us.
You have to send that to me.
Yeah, in fact, I think I gave a copy to Shiraz Kashmani when I came there. He's got a copy, but I will definitely take a print of it and send it to you. So I was a Queen Scout, and I think those are my happy memories. And then in 1964 1962 I finished my A levels, and then I got a place before I said that, let me explain to you that the system in East Africa at the time was that Uganda had a university for medicine, Kenya had a university for engineering, and Tanzania had a university for law. So after schooling, and with very, what shall I say, blinkered eyes, with very limited vision, people always thought of becoming a doctor, engineer, or a lawyer in East Africa. To be honest, nobody thought of other things. I think perhaps Noordin's group was one of the ones which went to England to do accountancy and things like that. Yeah. But anyway, I wanted to do. What happened was, when I did A levels, I didn't know what to do. None of my friends knew what to do. And so when the results came out, so after O levels rather, we didn't know which subjects to choose for A levels, which are the last 2 years of schooling, which would prepare us for university. And so we went to our teachers and said, we don't know what to do for our A levels. So the teacher looked at my result and he said, oh, you're very good at maths, so you better do physics, maths, physics, and chemistry. And then another friend of mine, and he said, oh, you're not very good at maths, so you better do physics, chemistry, and biology. So we did that without really knowing or thinking what will be the next step at university. And then when I did mine, I got my A-level results. This friend of mine who did physics, chemistry, biology got his. And then I went to the teachers again, and they said, you can either do BSc science or you can do engineering. So they said. So I said, oh, I don't do, if I do BSc science, what do I do? They said, you become a teacher. I said, oh, bloody hell, I don't want to become a teacher, so let me do engineering. So I applied at University College Nairobi for engineering. And my friend, who was not good at maths, but did physics, chemistry, and biology, he asked the same question, and he was told, yeah, you can do BSc Science or medicine. So he said, I think I will go for medicine. So he applied at Makerere University in Kampala and got a place there. And there's my friend, Dr. Sadhu Adatia, who is based in Calgary. So I did engineering, and the first year, I got a place in Nairobi, and when you get a place, it's almost like a scholarship because everything is paid by the government. So I went to Nairobi in 1963, 64. It's for my first year of engineering. Now, what happened was, although they were doing engineering degrees being set by Cambridge University, from the year I joined, because Kenya had become independent, just independent, they decided that they're going to have their own degrees, East African degrees. And I got a bit nervous about it, and not knowing whether it will be recognized throughout the world or not. So since my brother Nurdin was in England at the time, I was communicating with him, and he said, why don't you come to England, and do it here? That was an exciting prospect, as you can imagine. In 1964, somebody telling you you're going to go to England, it was like something out of this world, yeah? So 63, 64, I didn't pay much attention at university. And Shamim was in Nairobi as well, doing some course in a college there. So we had a fantastic time as boyfriend, girlfriend.
Wait, time out.
Huh?
Hold on.
Okay.
Every time, so when I spoke with Nurdinada,
Yeah.
and when I spoke with Aminada, they never said we had a fantastic time. It was like Nurdinada, they had to keep it secret. Otherwise, Rosie Auntie would be shipped back home or something. With Aminata, it was Nasamati, had to go back home for a few years, and then she came. All of a sudden, you're having a fantastic time.
No, this is in Nairobi.
So how all of a sudden are you having a fantastic time, and your brothers are keeping it on the lowdown?
I'm having good time because, first of all, I think that my prospect was to go to England.
Yeah.
So this first year I was studying there. It did not really matter, right? And I didn't study as hard as I was capable of studying. So it didn't matter what the results came to. And the results didn't come to very good. But what I did do was, even though the Nurdin had said come to England, and he'd applied on my behalf through a friend of his in a particular college in England for engineering, there was loads of scholarships were being offered to Uganda at the time because Uganda also was independent. So I applied for a German scholarship to go to Germany, and they were going to put me for 6 months in a school of Germany to study German, and then to do mechanical engineering. So I applied for this, and I was very good at preparing for interviews. So I seem to remember that when I finished my first year at university in Nairobi, and before deciding to go to England, I was called for an interview in Kampala, and there were 6 German guys, and there was one Indian guy who was the education administrator for Uganda. So they were interviewing me, and I was so prepared. I knew everything about Germany, about the political system. I seem to remember the Christian Democratic Union and the Christian Democratic Party, and I knew about the method of education. I was so prepared. So anyway, then I was waiting for the result to come out. And at the same time, Nurdin was telling me that the college was starting in September in England. I said, when you coming? When you coming? I said, let me wait for the results for the scholarship because I might get a chance to go to Germany because really they could not afford to pay for my education, to be honest. He could afford to, enough money to pay for my fares to England, which was like £90 by plane. So any day came when I talked to the education administrator and I said, look, am I going to get the scholarship or what's happening? And he said, I can tell you that you've got it, but it's not confirmed in writing. Okay. So I said, but I'm in a bit of a dilemma because the college in England is starting and I don't want to miss it. At the same time, I would prefer to have a scholarship to Germany. And he said, why don't you go to England? And when the scholarship is confirmed, I will write to you and we can pay you to go from England to Germany and that's it. So I said, oh, that sounds like a good idea. So I gave him Nurdin's address, which I will never forget. It was like 52 Abbott's Gardens, East Finchley, London, N2. 52 Abbott's Garden was the name of address of the house he was staying in.
So this is before the Bexley address.
This is, when he was staying with a landlady, him and Rosina, they were staying with some English couple.
What's that address again?
52 Abbott's Gardens.
Edwards Gardens.
No, Abbott's, Abbots, Abbott's Gardens, East Finchley, London, N2. In those days, the zip code was just N2, yeah? And so anyway, I went to England and 3 months later, I got this letter to confirm that I had won this German scholarship. Yeah. And I was given 2 weeks to sign that after I qualify, I will work in Uganda for 5 years as a commitment. And it letter says that if you don't accept and we don't receive your letter back within 2 weeks, then we will offer the scholarship to somebody else. Only problem is that this letter I got was 3 months late because they forgot to write 52 Abbott's Gardens. They just wrote care of Mr. N. Qasim, East Finchley, London, N2. And then eventually it ended up in Uganda Embassy, and from the embassy it came to Nurdin. So I was really gutted, and I sent them the envelope, the original envelope, and said, look, this is the mistake you made, not putting the right address and everything. And I never even received a reply. So no regrets. Maybe I would have ended up going to Germany, and maybe my children now would have blonde hair. So nobody knows what would have happened to me as a mechanical engineer.
I think your daughters have dyed their hair blonde at least once in their lifetime, I think.
Yes, not only blonde. My granddaughter even dyes it red. So is there anything else about my sort of youth in Bali that...
So my dad yesterday shared with Faiza, Aniz, and I a picture of the house in Bali. And when I spoke with Aminata the other day, he told me that you all lived in this one house with your grandfather.
This lovely house, the 2-story house.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was we lived there from, I would say, during my secondary school education. So we probably lived there for about 6 years. But grandfather and father did go through tough times, and eventually they had to give up that house and we moved to a smaller place. But I never saw that, I did see it, but I never had to leave because I had already left for England whilst we were still living in this house. My room was the one with the balcony on the first floor. And I had one wall painted black, so I could use like a blackboard for my study. Yeah, so I used to use one wall as a blackboard whilst I was doing my maths and physics calculations and all that, writing formula for organic chemistry, formulas and things like that. So I was quite studious at the time. You can say perhaps the only studious brother at the time, and only one having ended up going to university. Not necessarily because I was clever or anything, I was studious. Of course, big family, big commitments, affordability, everything goes into it. So I was very fortunate to be living in that room with a balcony in the front on the first floor. And we had quite a few students come from different parts of Uganda and from Kenya who were staying at that particular house as a boarder into the room next to mine, which was almost like a dormitory. It was so big, which is not surprising. This house was purpose-built, by the way. It was a bespoke. And so obviously my dad deciding on the plan of the house. And because we had like a dormitory was because all the boys can sleep in one room. And then another big room where the girls can sleep. And then another room where for the grandfather, and then one room for mom and dad. So it was like that. And so in the dormitory, because we were going through tough time financially, and Nurdin was already in England. And so we had to have these boarders to sleep in this room that was like a dormitory. And we had, in fact, I still remember we had 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 5 boarders actually.
Wow. And where were they from?
Sorry?
Where were they from?
Well, there was one guy from Masaka. Two guys from Masaka. One was a Hindu Punjabi guy, the son of a barber, but he was a genius, and did medicine and became a brain surgeon. And then there was another Ismaili guy from Kisumu. Sorry, 2 Ismaili guys from Kisumu. And one Goan guy from Entebbe, who used to love music and play guitar and was suspended from school because he was taking too much interest in music than studies. So they were all there to do the last 2 years of schooling. So so there was this Goan guy, one guy, 2 Ismailis from Kisumu, Amin and Nizar, and then the Anwar guy from Masaka, and then the son of a barber from Masaka. So 5 of them, and they all done okay. They were okay.
Nice.
And
so you were the studious one.
I think so, yeah.
And Aminata was the one who would bother Bapaji for some money to go see movies.
That's correct.
How did it? Go ahead.
I used to also watch a lot of movies. Me and my friend used to disappear, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was focused on my schooling education, no doubt about it. And I simply remember that even Nurdin used to admire me at the time. The system we had was also like that, which will give an incentive to work hard. So this O level I'm talking about, which is the 2 years before A levels, in other words, 2 years before university, the exam that's set by Cambridge University, you used to get first grade, second grade, third grade, or fail. And third grade was almost like fail. And there were very few students who would get it. So I was one of the 4 students who got it in my year, A level, first grade. So I even got a certificate which says first grade, yeah? So there was me, and there was Nassim, who is Shamim's first cousin. And then there was my friend, Sadhu Adatya, who is a doctor in Calgary. And then there was chap called Afzal, who is a friend of Nurdin. So we were 4 of us who had secured, I should say 4 of us amongst the Ismailis, yeah? For the first grade. There were, of course, few other from other communities who had first grade as well. And that was one main reason why I easily got a place in Nairobi University, all paid for by the government, and also why perhaps I was also successful in securing the German scholarship, although I never got a chance to use it. So yeah, that's it as far as that is concerned.
How did you and Amindata get so tight?
Okay,
Because it seems like you seemed growing up to be different, but today and for I don't know how many years you guys have been. It seems to me that you two are very close.
yeah, I think we are almost like joined at the hips, to be honest. What happened was after I left to go to England, it was tough. If I tell you how tough it was, you wouldn't believe it. And we didn't think beyond the end of our noses as far as the affordability is concerned. And you were too shy to ask your father for the money when you knew he was already struggling. And so when I went to England, I found that I had to work one night a week in a bakery in the town where I was studying. And I was getting £5 cash in hand. This is 1964 onwards. And I was staying with an English lady and paying her £4 and 10 shillings, which was £4.5 at the time. And I had my own room with heating and all the 3 meals of the day, in fact, even 4 meals. So even have a supper at 10:30 at night. And for lunchtime, I could come home for lunch if I wanted to, or she gave me packed lunch to take to the college. So it was amazing. For £4, 10 shillings, you could get all this, yeah? And you were still left with 10 shillings, yeah? Which was amazing. And 1 shilling used to be 12 pence at the time. So you can imagine 20 shillings was like 240 pence. And for 3 pence, you could get chips. And for 75 pence, you could get fish and chips. Yeah. So you can imagine 240 pence in a pound, 75p, you can get fish and chips. So that's how, there was no, I don't think that terminology inflation was even invented then. Nobody talked about inflation and, so it was brilliant. So it was very tough. And then what happened was one day I got a letter from my mom who said that, look, you cannot be courting with somebody for 3 years without getting married, yeah?
Maju wrote this letter to you.
She knew that Shamim and I were sort of corresponding with each other and so on, yeah? And that she was my girlfriend. So in 1967, 3 years after I left, I told Nurdin that this is what mom is saying. And I made him read the letter. And he said, good idea, go home and get married, And I said, I don't even have a bloody suit, man. And he said, I'll give you my suit. So he gave me a suit. I said, I don't have money to go back to Nairobi, to go back home. And she said, I'll pay for your fares. So he paid for my fares. And I got home and told Shamim I'm not getting married. And she said, of course, yes. And it was quite funny, actually, because I told my mom that, okay, we decided to get married. And my mom was supposed to send a proposal to Shamim's dad. So what happened was my flight I arranged such that it went to Nairobi, because Nairobi, my mom's brothers were staying in Nairobi. So it was very convenient and we were very close to our mamas. So I seem to remember that from England, I went to Nairobi and Shamim came to Nairobi as well. She had relations there as well. So we were going out for a few days and planning this wedding and everything. And then we decided on the date. So we didn't have mobile phones in those days. You had to go to a telephone booth to make a phone call. And then, so one day Shamim said, why don't you ring my dad and tell him we've decided on this date, assuming that my mom has already put the proposal forward. Yeah. So one evening, Shamim's dad was quite a tough guy. I mean, he was not somebody you would muck around with. Yeah. He didn't even know about this. We were courting and all that. And it was like a taboo, in those days. So I got in the telephone booth, Shamim next to me, and I'm ringing her dad, and I said, we've decided on the 12th of August. I said, who is this? I said, Taj. So, who is Taj? I said, Shamim hasn't told you. I was stammering that, not knowing what to say. And I said, my mom has not sent you a proposal. I said, what proposal? I said, oh my God. I immediately gave the phone to Shamim. I can't remember what happened then, whether we put the phone down or what. Basically, I wanted to tell him that we wanted to get married the 12th of August, only to find out later on that my mom had written to him with the proposal to ask for the daughter's hand in marriage, and he never got the letter. But that is history. So, but more important thing is that I got married, and then it took Shamim about 6 months to get visas to join me. And then I went to England, and the whole thing sunk in as to I was studying then, and how am I going to live? Okay, Amin had come in the meantime, and so Amin and I were staying in one rented room and sharing a bed. Now imagine this is a married man who's waiting for his wife to arrive. Okay, he's going to college. He's living on his brother's earning. With Amin, whatever he was doing, insurance or something. And so two of us were staying like that, and obviously we became extremely close. I was going to college, and when you go to college over in England, they give you names of the books that you got to buy and use and read and whatever for every subject. And that in itself was like a mammoth task. So Amin would help me go to various libraries. And I'm sorry to say this on the podcast, but it's to steal books from the libraries that I was supposed to buy so that I can use them. That is just as an example. And then we got to a stage, and then Shamim finally arrived. And she came, I seem to remember. And then, of course, because Shamim was coming, Amin and I had to find a better place because, so we found a place with a lounge and a bedroom and a kitchen. I can't remember whether the kitchen was being shared or not, but the lounge was being doubled up as Amin's bedroom at night. And then this place we rented just before Shamim came. So Shamim came in the winter months in the evening because we brought Qatar from the airport, Qatar train, suitcase home. And in the morning, Amin went to work and I went to college. And when she opened the curtains, across from the road was a cemetery. But she got the shock of her life because all the cemeteries in Uganda and Kenya and East Africa used to be in the jungle where, you were scared to go there and you only heard about ghost stories in the cemetery and, you'd be frightened to go to a cemetery unless it was daytime and so on. So that is how it started. And then, of course, there was no money to lead a reasonable life. And Shamim had to immediately find a job, which she did, fortunately. So she was working in a place where you could rent and hire television sets. in those days, black and white. And then once we were there, then the color televisions came as well. So she was working as an accountant there. And but before she came, and I wanted to give a fantastic life to my newlywed bride. And I seem to remember that we bought a second-hand television, for £5, and it was huge. And we bought it from a shop which was like 2 miles away from where we were living. And we carried this huge thing to home and, got this TV working. It was black and white. So we did a lot of things like this together. And most of you can say we struggled together, which is what bonded us together. So anyway, Shamim then started working, and then we moved from there because she didn't want to stay opposite the cemetery. So we moved to London in an address called 4 Maxfield Road. Number 4 Maxfield Road, Putney. It was in Putney. And so this flat we rented was in the attic. It was in the roof space. But we had one bedroom of our own with slanting ceiling. And we had a lounge of our own with one was straight and another was slanting. And the kitchen had slanting walls, all three ways, where only Shamim was big enough just for Shamim. And this was all up on the 3rd floor.
Yeah.
And on the 1st floor, there was a bathroom which we had to share with the rest of the tenants in the house. And you won't believe this, but when Shamim then was expecting, and I don't know that I should put this thing, but you can edit this if necessary. We didn't have enough money to buy food, although Shamim didn't know this. So there was a small supermarket just around the corner, where Amin and I would go and steal some tins of food. And Shamim was feeling very hot in the summer. We were expecting a baby, and we couldn't afford to buy a packet of orange juice. Not that in those days they were not that readily available anyway, but orange ice cream was available, the Lodi ice cream. So we would buy those and crush them and put them in a jug and give it to Shamim while she was expecting a baby. So besides stealing books from the library, we steal food from the supermarket. I must admit, most of it was done by Amin because I was too bloody scared.
Sure, blame him.
It was amazing. I was too scared, man. And then what happened was, this is perhaps the pinnacle of struggle, which brought us perhaps very close. That Amin Ada was doing insurance, he might have told you, in a company called Eagle Star. And in those days, I don't know about now, but there was no full-time course or even a part-time course in insurance. It was like doing accountancy, chartered accountancy, where you joined a company and had articleship to do accountancy. And that was accepted by the British government for giving visas. Amin was working with this company, Eagle Star, as a trainee insurance guy, and he was loving it, really, and he would have made his life out of that. And he used to get his visa once a year, and suddenly one year he went for visas, and they put a stamp to say he must leave within 1 week, leave England within 1 week. So there was a panic situation. It was almost like losing your wife or husband, because three of us were staying together, almost like a family.
Even in the attic, you were staying together.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Not only that, from there we moved to Bexley until Amin got married. We were staying together. Not until he got married. I think we did move out at some stage. Yeah, and I seem to remember. I'll come to that. No, Amin was with us for a long time. And yeah, I will tell you, in fact, such a long time that Anisha thought he was the father, but I'll come to that. Uh, so anyway, so they put a stamp to say that he must leave the country within a week. And we didn't know what to do. So I went with him to the Home Office and said, well, what's the problem? And they said he's not doing 15 hours of day studies in a week. That is the requirement, 15 hours of day studies. Okay. So he went to various colleges and joined a course, secretarial course, domestic science course, whatever course you can imagine. He just joined, 2 hours a week here and 1 hour a week there. And so we went with 15 hours. And this again put a stamp saying he must leave within 7 days. He said, what happened? He said, you haven't deducted half an hour for lunch break. And so they were very hard. And so you are okay to talk, or Karim, you?
No, we're good.
Yeah?
We're good. Yeah.
So we had to do something about this now, because the time was running out and they would have put him on the plane and got him to go back to Uganda. So we then decided to let him join college full time. And I think the fee was £150 for foreign students, and join accountancy. And Shamim Chachi had, when she left Kenya, you were allowed to bring maximum £250 or something. So she had that saved. So we used that £150 for him to join the college. But this also meant that he was going to leave his job. And from his job, he used to contribute £5 a week. And Shamim used to earn after tax £12 a week. So we used to live with £17 a week. Yeah. Of which I seem to remember the £7, 10 shillings went towards the rent. And then it went towards my college, catching train to the college and all that, and my lunch and everything. And the rest for the food and so on. Yeah. So we were living with £17 a week, with contributing £5, which was going to stop. So we didn't know what to do. So I said, okay, I will leave college. I was in my final year. And I left college. And that's the best thing that's happened in my career. So I left college and joined college. And soon after that, he got articleship to do accountancy, where he was getting paid. So I found after a few months, there was no need for me to work. So, I think I can't remember what work I was doing, but I think I was working somewhere in a big store, moving furnitures and things like that. Yeah. And then when Amin joined the articleship and Shamim was still working, then I didn't want to waste my life not doing anything. It was my final year, which I taken a break from, but it was too late to go back to the college. So I went looking for a job in civil engineering company and was not having much joy. So I went to a company called Wimpy. I seem to remember I never forget, 6 Hammersmith Grove was their address in London. And I went there, and in those days, they used to have personal managers, not HR. They used to be called personal managers who used to recruit staff. So I went and told the reception, can I see the personal manager? And she said, why? I said, I want to talk to him about a job. She said, have you got an appointment? And I said, no, I don't have an appointment. And she said, well, you can't join. But I said, I keep writing to people and nobody's even calling me for an interview. So I've come here myself for an interview. And she said, you can't do things like that. And then this personal manager happened to pass behind me. and he could see me arguing with this woman. And he said, what seems to be the problem? So she said, he wants to see you, but he doesn't have an appointment. So he said, what do you want? He said, what do you want? So I said, I want to work for you for nothing. That's what I told him. And I meant it. So he came, he said, come to my office. So I went to his office and sat down, told them the story of our lives, why I had left college and why I did not need to work anymore, other than get some experience by working for a company like this. So I said, I'm not after money. We are quite happily living with 70 pounds a week, three of us. Just give me a job where I can, learn something. So he said, okay, I can't have you working for nothing, but I'll give you £6 a week, okay, as a trainee engineer. But you'll have to go to Wales on a dam project. So went to Wales, and I was staying in a pub with other engineers, and we used to go to this amazing valley, where they were going to blast this mountain and use the clay for filling to form a dam. And there was a lot of protest, from the environmentalists and so on. And eventually the dam was built. It was called Cleanbrian Dam. And I was staying in a Welsh village called Llandovery, spelled with double L, Llandovery. So Amin Chacha was with Shamim during that period. And anyway, I was enjoying this training thing so much. And then after that, Wimpy brought me, they bought another company called Fitzpatrick, or there's some association with it or something. What happened? No, Wimpy brought me back here, and then they're using me on a different site, on a motorway. Yeah, motorway site, M40, highway come bypass. And so I worked like that for a few months, and I seem to remember these guys were coming from Imperial College with first class in civil engineering, and they were working under me. And they were saying, wow, man, wow, you know so much, how do you know all this? And they were admiring me, and I didn't even have a degree. And I was there, with a lot of experience, yeah, as a starting out engineer. And then some terminologies they use on site, they don't even teach you at college. So there was tremendous thing for me, that whole year's experience. And then what happened was, because I took a year off, when I did join the college, I failed, to be honest, but which meant that I continued working. So I was like 2 years of fantastic experience before I got my qualification. So you can imagine what my prospects were in job hunting after that, after I did eventually qualify. So then Anisha was born whilst we were in Maxfield Road. And Anisha was born. I had applied for a job in a soils lab, okay? And through a friend of mine who was related to Shamim, who was a civil engineer, and he was emigrating to Canada. And he told me, why don't you apply for this job? And I thought it's not a bad idea. Maybe I'll get some experience in soils engineering, which is one of the subjects I was doing anyway, but I was not qualified then yet. So anyway, so I applied for this job. Anisha was born. Then Nurdin was leaving to go to England, and he was living in Harbeck's Close. So the house was available. I got a job. Shamim was in hospital. In those days, they used to keep women for 10 days.
Afterwards.
When they went for maternity, yeah. So, when the baby was born, they were there for 10 days. So you won't believe this. What luck Anisha brought us. Yeah. I picked up from the hospital in the car, which I was given as an employee, working as a soils engineer, right? I got the job. So picked them up in the car and took them straight to Arbex Close. Okay, so we are now living in a maisonette, like it was our own house because it belonged to Nurdin. Eventually, I think Shaukat bought it, but so it belonged to him. And that was really the change of luck. After that, never looked back. Okay, so what happened then? We moved into the house. I was working as a storage engineer. Then the company another company called Fitzpatrick bought over this company, which was called Limmer and Trinidad, which was storage engineering. So Fitzpatrick bought Limmer and Trinidad, and Fitzpatrick were contractors. And then they were using me as an engineer, of which I already had some experience with Wimpy. So I was like, now becoming a senior engineer. So there's in terms of ladder in my profession, you start as a junior engineer and you do setting out, which is very impressive. And you see these guys on the road with these instruments and holding a staff. Yeah, that is the lowest position you can have as a civil engineer. Then you become a senior engineer and you start taking more responsibility. Then you progress further and you become like a section agent. So you look after a section of the job. Then you become a sub-agent, which is like assistant project manager. Then you become a site agent, which is the project manager. Then you become a contracts manager where you look after more than one contract. Then you become an office manager, looking after an office. Then you become an associate director, then you become a director, okay? So I was on this junior engineer position with a lot of experience. So this Fitzpatrick took over and then they sent me to work. Now what happened was, because I was really determined now to get my qualification, pass my exam, I decided to stay somewhere not far from where I was working, because we didn't have all those fantastic roads and everything those days. So it was like, long drive to work, long drive back home, with not much time left for studies. So for 3 months, I stayed near work. Yeah. And I seem to remember going and asking for a place to stay. And I went to this area where there were mostly guys from Pakistan and India. And this was mostly from Pakistan. And so I went in this guy and he said, you want you want a bed or you want a room? So I said, what do you mean? So he said, you can have a bed for daytime or you can have a bed for nighttime. So I said, you mean if I have a room bed for night, somebody else will sleep in there during bedtime? He said, yeah. So I said, no, let's talk about the room. So he gave me a room eventually. And this room, I'm not kidding, I don't know in those days, if you remember, we used to get these telephone directories, which were this thick. Yeah. There used to be competition with these guys showing off their strength, trying to tear this. So there were 6 of these, which made one of the 4 legs, of the bed. So I rented this place. I seem to remember like 15 shillings a week. And I had to share the kitchen with somebody. And so I lived there for 3 months. And during that period, you can imagine it was in Habex Close was Amin and Shamim and Anisha. So when I go home at the weekends, some weekends I would not go home. I would study. Some weekends I would go home and I'd go near Anisha and she would scratch my cheeks, She didn't want me to try and hold her. And honestly, she thought that Amin was the father.
Yeah.
So anyway, you can imagine now why we became so close. And then, of course, Amin was staying with an English lady we know, Jo, in London. And I think he got to meet Nassim But I think we maybe didn't meet Nassim when we were living in Maxwell Road, because Nassim was staying in Schubert Road, which is the road parallel to Maxwell Road. But I don't know how. But anyway, so Amin was now in love, and he was staying with Joe, our English friend, and he would walk and meet Nassim. So obviously I was now having my dedicated married life without Amin in my life. Amin was courting with Nassim without Nassim in his life. And then, of course, they got married, and Shamim was the one who was like a mother who organized everything, yeah? And so obviously we got even more close, and Nassim's brothers, and they came to London, and we jointly made an effort for them to get married. So yeah, we got very close, and then I could see that Amin was not in a much future in England. He was working with a meat guy, a wholesale butchers or wholesale meat supplier, and he was working with them even when he was staying in Harbeck's Close with me and Shamim. And also it was very convenient because he used to bring meat and chicken and everything, free. And there was a luxury, believe me, to have a Sunday joint, which was roast beef on a Sunday, which everybody had once a week, was like a luxury. And he would bring a great big piece of joint from work. He was enjoying his work, and I used to admire him because, he's the sort of guy, unlike me, and not like I would give my life for my company, and not knowing that 1 year after you leave them, you are forgotten. Whereas, he would work what he was expected to do, that's what he would do, and 9 to 5 means 9 to 5. And I used to admire him because he used to tell me, I seem to remember with this meat supplier, he was working as an accountant, he was telling me that I'm doing 1 week's work in 5 hours, and I'm getting overtime as well. So, that's my brother, and I think he's followed that philosophy throughout his life. I didn't tell you one thing, that I, in my profession, I had a sort of a meteoric rise. It took me 14 years from being a junior engineer that I described to be the managing director of a 500 million pound public company. When I say I became managing director, actually they made me the lockup MD in 1984, because the MD was going to do an MBA course, which had just come out then. MBA was quite a relatively new thing, and he wanted to do it full-time course in 9 months and get MBA, because he never had a degree in civil engineering, but he was a brilliant guy. Brilliant. So he wanted some sort of qualification as a director before he became MD. No, he had become MD, yeah. So for 9 months, because he went to do this course, he made me locum. I was already a director. He made me the locum MD, and all the other directors were English guys, and they knew who the next MD was. So I was not getting much cooperation during that period from them. But even then, I ran the company like amazing. And then afterwards, they offered me the managing directorship. But for my sins, I decided to buy a company. And I left this company in 1995, which was my biggest mistake that I made. And after that, I had to struggle a lot before I made up again. So after I left them, I bought a company which was okay for a year and a half. And then there was a big recession, and we lost our house and lost everything. I had to go to Uganda. We ran the company down. I had bought this company in 1985, ran it until 1992 to wind it down. I sold the company with the land, sold the house in 93, rented a place, went to Uganda on my own. And it was a struggle until I came back in the year 2000, or 1993 actually. So I was in Uganda from 93 to 99, came back in 99. And then I had to really get focused and work extremely hard again to come up to the same sort of standard as I was enjoying when I was the director of the company. I think it took me up to the year 2010 when we bought this house and I was able to get it refurbished. So yeah, that's the story. And I don't know if I've left any gaps that you want me to fill in.
No, I want to ask you one last question. What advice would you give to your grandchildren? And maybe you've already given them this advice, but what advice would you give them, not specifically about studies or career, but I don't know, life advice? Is there anything that you would like them to know if there's one thing that they should know?
I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, but I have to first of all give advice of career, yeah?
Okay.
Because one thing I need to tell you that I was very selfish as far as my career was concerned. I never thought of the family. I made my daughters change the schools 10 times. Anisha, at the age of 9, she sat down for an exam which is called 11 plus. But because she is born on 29th of August, she would be the sort of the youngest student in the class. But the youngest would be the one who was born 31st of August. So the system of schooling here is that the year begins from the 1st of September to the 31st of August. So if you were on the 29th of August, you would be one of the youngest. But this 11 plus exam, you have to give when you were like 10 years old. But Anisha's birthday was such that she was like 9 years old. And this exam was to get a place in a grammar school because the system of education had changed. Before, all the schools were like grammar schools. And then the government decided they want comprehensive schools. They wanted to encourage students who were not clever and clever, put them all together and let not be competitive. You know, so people then, some grammar school decided to stay as grammar schools. But then it was very difficult to get a place in a grammar school. So I was a director at the time, living in Seven Oaks in Riverhead, with a beautiful house next to a lake. And Anisha sat for this exam. 10,000 students had sat for 2,000 places, and she got the place in girls' grammar school in a place called Tonbridge. And then I had to move from there. And then the mistake I made was because I moved from there, I was feeling so guilty that I put both the girls in private school. Yeah, where the other girls were really far advanced because they were from private school from the beginning. And in England, the private schools are called public school, by the way. And the government schools are called state schools. So I put them in a public school in Guildford. It's okay, they didn't do badly. Anisha got a degree, but Tasnim didn't manage to get a degree, but she did okay. Except that Anisha got into drama and English because she was the best actress in the school. And there's another big grammar school in Guildford, which was like 400 years old, boys' school. So when the boys would organize plays in their school, they would call Anisha to take a part as one of the major roles. So I think that got into her head and she thought she was going to be a great actress. And despite me saying to her she'll have a limited role and so on, and that's what she eventually did, English and drama. Anyway, she's very happy and contented. So what I would say is, when it comes to career, I was very selfish, and I should have thought of family, and I should have been more firm with the company who kept moving me. They were very generous when they were moving me in the amount of money they were giving me for uprooting myself and selling the house, buying another house, and all that. But I was really selfish in that respect. So, yeah, my advice would be for any guy or a woman to think of the family at the same time. Yeah. What advice? As parent and grandparent, you just think of education, honestly. And every time I talk to my grandchildren, I'm just talking about schooling, even to the annoyance of Anisha sometimes, because she thinks I'm overdo it. So I don't know what, in terms of what's the advice. You see, because of my career as well, we used to have away from Jamaat Khanas as well. So from that respect point of view, also, I've suffered in the sense like, Anisha has got her own ideas about religion. Yeah, as you know, I don't know if you know, but I mean, she's, what I said in my wedding speech. Yeah.
I was not there at your wedding speech, so.
No, in my wedding speech, I said, I started my speech by saying my name is Taj and I'm the father of.
Oh, this is Anisha's wedding. Okay.
Yeah. You know what I said. No, I said.
I don't know what you said. No.
In my speech, I said my name is Taj and I'm a capitalist father of a socialist bride. And which is true. And I said I even offered to pay for a 6-course meal, but no, she wanted fish and chips, which is what we had during the reception. And next thing I said that my name is Taj and I'm a socialist. I'm a religious father of an atheist bride. And I asked Anisha, why are you a non-believer? And all she could say was, God knows. So that's how my speech went. So like Anisha does not believe in religion. And I can say maybe it's my fault because we used to live in the wilds where there was no Jamaat Khana and we could hardly go Jamaat Khana once a month or things like that. And I should have, been more conscious of that, like Nurdin and Rosina, they were very, very particular about their children, their religion, the sevas, all those things that they've instilled into their children. They're obviously very focused from that point of view, yeah. Although they also made sure the education-wise, they also did fantastic. So yeah, if you're not talking about education, then the religion that comes to my mind. I can't think of what else. What did you have in mind when it comes to what would I advise my grandchildren?
I have. Minaz will tell you, I have nothing in my mind. So it is whatever you wanted to say. But to end off, let me say this to. I don't know Anisha's daughter very well. I think I may have met her when she was a baby, but I don't. I don't know her.
Let me tell you that Maya is growing up like Anisha. She's a duplicate of Anisha. And when I talk to her, she does take more interest than Anisha did in terms of me guiding her through her career. She's quite excited about it, and even to the point that I think she's thinking in terms of Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, and places like that for university. I'm not sure if you ask me whether I think she's that clever that she'll make it, because sometimes clever people don't say much and you don't know, yeah? She seems to be focused enough to be able to achieve something like that. And so I'm trying to guide her in that respect, education-wise. When I talk to her about life, and I said that you should think of after you finish your university, that's going to, whatever you do up to there is going to pay the rest of your life as to what sort of standard of living you had, what sort of house you live in, what sort of car you drive. If those things are important to you, they are not to Anisha. To Anisha, those things are not at all important, okay? So when I talk to Maya, she does listen and get excited. That if I tell her that, if you were at Cambridge University and you wanted to work in a bank, you get a job, without an interview, and you start with £80,000 and get £1 million bonus at the end of the year, which is true in England, yeah. If you join a bank as an investment banker and things like that, even as a trainee. But I said that you burn out at the age of 55, and I was explaining this thing to Maya, and she was really getting excited because she likes science and so on. And so yeah, only those sort of things I talk with her. She doesn't mind coming to Khane and saying dua with her and tasbih and so on. Yeah, she sits down with me and then Shamim said dua and everything. But whether in her adult life she will ever make an effort to go to Khane, I'm not sure. Yeah.
I think all that being said, Taju, I have to tell you this, that to see how Anisha and Maya get along as mother and daughter, even at Maya's age, should say to you that what you and Shamimanti did, you've done an amazing job. Yeah, and so I don't think that you should look back and say to yourself you may have made some mistakes, because I don't think you did.
Yeah.
I think you've done an amazing job looking at how they get along.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate that Anisha has turned out to be what she is, right? Extremely contented person, and I don't think you'd have a job to find a happier person. She's.
There you are. Yeah.
Yeah. So so things have gone well. And Taslim has been very reasonably content as well, but she's more like she likes the luxuries of life, and she's married to a nice guy, and they're doing well. Shukar, everything's fine, and she's enjoying what she's doing. Part-time teaching she does as a substitute teacher, and she's quite popular as a substitute teacher. So I should not really complain too much.
No, you've got two amazing daughters.
Yeah,
for sure.
Mia Lur has written her second book.
Yes.
A children's book. Yeah. So yeah, things are fine. Listen, I don't have too many regrets. The biggest mistake, as I said, which everyone makes in life, you always make one big mistake in life, I will tell you. And then you remember that always. And everybody does that. And my biggest mistake was to give up that job as a managing director. Yeah. And, life was so nice and steady and everything was well settled. And, we're living in Guildford in a lovely house. Amazing. I used to get a new car every 2 years. And there was a position, there was respect. I don't know if I told you, but in those days when I became a director, it was like something very new in England. It was unheard of. An Indian guy being a director of a big public company, civil engineering company. So I used to get all these invitations from, like 1982, Marcus, Who is Who in the World. I think they are the ones who published Who is Who in the World. So in 1982, they even interviewed me, and you'll see a paragraph in the 1982 Who is Who in the World, which says Taju Charania and about my CV. And Anisha and Tasneem are also mentioned there, and their date of birth and so on. Yeah, this is 1982. Tasneem was born in 1979. 72, Tasneem was born. Anisha was born in 1969. So yeah. And then I used to get other people, men of achievement and this and that, all coming to me and wanting me give them details. And of course, you buy their book and they charge you for the book quite heftily. I could afford to do it then. And at the same time, they give me a certificate on a fantastic wooden plaque. Yeah. And so this Marcus, who is who in the world, Maya has taken together with my certificate, on a wooden plank. And I've got 5 or 6 others, and I was trying to bind them, and then I didn't know, should I bind them or should I wait? Will one of my grandchildren or my children or one of the cousins would be interested? So I left them. I was waiting for Taslim to come in June, and I will ask if Mia or Arya are interested. Sometimes people might say, my grandfather is mentioned in this book, and might be interested in taking it. I don't know. But if nobody's interested, I'm going to put them in the bin. And I've got to a stage where even my certificate, my degree, and more important than my degree is my chartered membership of the Institute of Civil Engineers and my membership of the American Society of Civil Engineers. I never framed them. They're still rolled up, in a sleeve. And I don't know what to do them. I am going to dump them and
take photos. Take photos of all these with your phone and save them. And
I've got prints of them.
Yeah.
Why you send them? I'm thinking of even getting rid of the original. If I'm going to save, I might even save the original.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if you're going to get rid of them, like, take a photo of them.
Okay.
And save them in your account online somewhere.
Okay.
Right? So that it can be accessed afterwards.
Sure. Yeah, I will do that.
I would be very interested in some of these photos.
Yeah, good idea. No, I will do that because I already got prints of them. I think I did get rid of them recently. I might have saved some prints, and I will take a photo and save it.
Yeah. Save these photos.
Yeah.
Taju, thank you so much for your time.
Well, I hope I haven't told you a lot more than I should have, and I haven't taken a lot more of your time. My God, I've taken a lot of. My God, it's an hour and a half, and you said 45 minutes. It was nice to talk to you, Karim.
Yes, I've learned a lot about you. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome. All the best.
Yadi Madad.
All right, Madad.